Hello, my name is Cindy Sim. I am the CEO of Team CarePal, and we make mobile application for family caregivers who are looking after a loved one with an illness, disability, or aging needs, who are completely unseen, unsupported, unpaid, and they are the largest group of healthcare providers in Canada.
My name's Katrina Prescott. I am a person that you just talked about, an unpaid, untrained family caregiver, or I was for most of my life. I started quite young and to my grandfather, then to my grandmother, and then most recently to my mom, who is living with early onset dementia, who has passed. I do caregiving consulting for people that need navigation through this, as it's not readily or widely offered through the healthcare system.
So let's back up a minute. You talked about your caregiving journey starting quite young. How young were you when you started?
I guess I was probably about 6, which
Wow.
is a little bit weird. I mean, I didn't realize that that's what it was, but that is what it was. My grandfather lost his vision, and late in life, I think he was in his 60s, or yeah, probably 60s, late 60s. And he had to redo his whole life and how he moved through the world. And um, I would help him navigate the world without vision.
You were
And
his eyes?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that is so adorable.
No, I actually, it's so funny at that age, I didn't look at it as something negative. It just, I looked at it. I mean, of course I was sad for him, but at that age, I just saw an opportunity to help somebody,
Yeah.
to help somebody that I really loved. And I
Yes.
wanted him to just feel good and feel better and be okay. So it was natural for me to, I guess, step into that caregiving role that continued throughout my life.
So it moved in. I love this laugh. We're going to dive into that later. You moved in then with your grandma and then with your mom. Tell me about, your grandma.
So my grandmother lived to be very old. She was 98 when she passed. She was all there mentally. Physically she was not. So for many years, for a long time I had anticipatory grief because that kind of starts in the 70s even. But she kept going. And what's weird, when somebody lives that long, you kind of get so used to them, you never think they're going to go. A couple years later, that really affected my mom, who was her primary caregiver for about 25 years. And after my grandmother passed, my mom started presenting more with dementia. I initially thought she was losing her vision. I thought she was depressed, which she definitely was after grandma died, and then having vision issues. It wasn't until things really started to change for her. I would go to her place and there'd be rotten food in the fridge, and she was eating out the same thing twice a day. She was going to White Spot and having a veggie burger twice a day because she knew how to get there. I guess she knew how to get there and knew how to order that. Looking back, I didn't know. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about dementia at that time. So, but then when I did figure it out, yeah, it didn't feel great. It felt pretty scary, and I wasn't really understanding what was coming because no one can actually really be prepared for that. And well, maybe that can happen, but in my time, there wasn't a lot of prep for that. And I also, I was young, like I wasn't really
Yeah.
interested in being a caregiver to the level that I saw it kind of coming at me with. So I was angry and frustrated, and sad. And, I thought my grandma would pass and we'd travel. There was a lot, there was broken dreams. There was a lot going on. It was hard and frustrating. There was a couple things that were quite pivotal that pointed me towards knowing that she needed significantly more attention than what she was getting. One of those things was the rotten food. One of them was, yeah, her eating out. The other was the stories that she would make up, just really elaborate stories. And it would, some of them would soothe her, and some of them things would stress her out, and those things were also made up stories, like I've given away my home or my car or my savings, things like that. Those were red flags. So then I figured out a way to move her into the same living spaces as me, essentially, into the same building.
And how was she okay with that transition?
She did want to be closer to me because I feel like she didn't admit it, but she was scared. I see that now looking back. I wish I'd realized that more at the time. Move was really hard on me, so hard. And it was because I had to move her, and she'd been hoarding, and I was worried about her being on her own. Like, there was just so much going on, and I didn't drive, so I needed people to help me. There's so much, and she lived an hour away. It was really intense, the moving process. And then, moving a person living with dementia is not easy on them. Um, I mean, it got really bad. Like, I considered stepping in front of a truck. I
Oh,
just was so overwhelmed and exhausted, really. My counselor at the time would remind me of that. You're just tired. You're not really wanting your life to be over. Okay, I'll believe you today. But it was so much, and it was just the beginning too. So,
yeah.
but I didn't realize what was coming. So I didn't even know it was the beginning, but you start out from this place of exhaustion. There weren't really a lot of resources. We didn't qualify for home support. I think we got 15 minutes a day, a revolving door of workers. It was kind of like, well, what's the point of that? So,
What do you do for 15 minutes? I'm so
right.
sorry.
I mean,
Like,
yeah, like I'm planning my whole day around this like there's just no point. And the system didn't really offer any resources. And for early onset, there isn't many
yeah.
that
How are you balancing that? Like what?
it wasn't, yeah, I don't know if there was, I don't know if balance is even a word that can be used for describing how I navigated my way through that caregiving journey. There was definitely never any balance. Um, it was really pedal to the metal all the time, consistent, constant problem solving, constant, constant problem solving, constant forward thinking. Okay, we're going to go here. Is she going to be able to go into this? Like, so it's so much extra work. I had to keep working. I had to learn this whole new way of being with my mom, of how my mom was, of how, all of her friends disappeared except for one. So I didn't have any, my friends, a couple of my friends stepped up and helped, but I
Yeah.
was really alone.
Alone.
There was no balance, I would say. Um,
What would have helped, I guess, looking back at everything?
Respite. I mean, just effective, adequate respite. Respite is the number one thing that caregivers need. People like to talk about mental health and okay, but none of that can happen without respite. It's, you can't talk to anybody, you can't go anywhere. And if the respite isn't effective or adequate, if the support workers aren't trained properly to be in relationship with the person living with dementia, that respite doesn't work. So then you don't really get a break because you have to stay, or you have to stay close to home in case there's a problem. So respite that is effective, adequate is the number one thing that we could have used. And also, dementia is so stigmatized, right? So as soon as you say that, it really repels people. People
Yeah.
dissipate, they disappear. So, you know, trying to get people on board to help us was just so challenging. I tried to find volunteers or, okay, do you have a dog? Can my mom go with you on a dog walk? And, oh, my mom wants to volunteer. Can like someone be with her while she folds tea towels somewhere? But this is all work too to try to invent these things. Of course, I tried. It's why I invented close to home, or one of the reasons. Like I have neighbors and boxes right beside me that are watching TV. Can someone watch TV with my mom for 2 hours so I can have a shower?
Yeah.
It is the number one thing. Nothing else can be accessed. And quite frankly, like all three therapists that I had during the journey were not effective because they all just would say, put your mom in a home. So that mental health support that everybody
Yeah.
is talking about actually created more work for me and made me second guess myself and put me deeper in a hole. Whereas, having some respite and being able to have a nap or a shower or a walk or a phone call with a friend and whatever, laying on the floor and crying
Yeah.
would have been so supportive, just so effective, but it really wasn't really available. Actually, we ended up getting um, the max, which is there a max? Isn't there a max? It's controversial, but the max in BC is 27 hours a week. That you can't even have a full-time work week on that. So I took it. But I guess as we tried adult day program, it didn't match her needs. She was young and sitting in a circle playing a tambourine was not her
Okay.
idea of enter. She wanted to be out in the world, going for walks, going for a coffee,
Yeah.
so really getting we and that was a game changer, but it still wasn't enough for mom to be able to enjoy day program because it just didn't fit her. Like going to an ER is challenging, right?
Right.
Being in a doctor's office can be challenging, or it can be challenging at some point. The doctor's talking about the person as if they're not in the room when they're in the room can be very
Yeah.
triggering for the person. So like there's a
So
lot
they
of
brought the hospital and the medical clinic to your house.
that's right.
Oh
That's
my
right.
gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, that was really great. It was a total game changer. That was probably the only dementia care that was super effective. The other thing, I mean, we did have the 27 hours of home support, and because no one wanted to work with my mom, we ended up getting the same caregiver every day. And that was the only caregiver who did want to work with my mom, which was a blessing and a miracle because the revolving door of workers for a
Yeah.
person living with dementia just doesn't work. So yeah, that was a gift, but it was okay. I can work, I'd get blocks, 4 hours. I can work here, with commute is crazy. It's crazy. It was nuts. And then there would be days where I didn't have any help. So mom liked to be in the car. So I would drive for 8 hours taking phone calls.
Taking
She's
meetings.
entertained. Yeah, like that's crazy.
Chilling with your mom.
Yeah. It's just but such a game changer it can be for a person living with dementia. It was in our experience anyway. And like she would love music and like she would just eat and have laugh attacks because she was
So you figured out how to bring some sort of a balance, if you want to call it that. Like you said, it's not really balanced, but you figured out how to survive,
it's a
basically.
great question. Self-forgiveness and guilt are yeah, in life very challenging, and as a caregiver extremely challenging as well. Um I think the caregiving journey was 7 or 8 years zone. And I will say that there was many years where that wasn't there. That wasn't even, the survival was just so much, you would just do it and then feel guilt and then regret and then keep going. And then repeat, most likely, those same patterns, because there's no space, or unless you're consciously using tools and tips and techniques and tricks to create this space, you're not finding the moment. And I just realized it wasn't going to work. Like, this isn't working. Why am I arguing? Like, what is the point? Who cares? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to win. Like, why do I want to win? What is winning? What is that?
Yeah.
Someone gonna get, you really won that argument,
Yeah.
Kiki. Yeah. Good thing you told your mom off. Like, who, what? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so weird. So I had this aha moment, like literally a light came over me and it changed in an instant. And from there, I started opening my heart more to accepting what was going on. And that that changed it for me. That was a 2-degree shift that I needed to see things in a different light. Now, I don't know that I started practicing self-forgiveness right then, but what I did start to do was create space, right? So I'm doing a task. God, I'm making a freaking I'm so sick of making the sandwich. Okay, bread is being topped with the toppings. I'm cutting the sandwich. Like, not attaching to a story to these tasks, right? That creates so much space. Getting stuck in story is just so easy when you're tired, right? As well. And it can just speed up that
Escalate.
frustration cycle so much more.
Yeah.
So really stepping into, like, this is what I'm doing right now. It's just right now. And then that will be over. And then something else will, really moving into the present moment with things and using it as a meditation, as a practice, right? So then I started creating that space. And then once that space came in, I had moments of being with myself, and I was able to also let mom be herself more and not wanting her to be how I wanted her to be. Because
Yeah.
really, that is one of the most challenging parts of caregiving, is that or it can be that that person isn't showing up the way that we want them to. So really letting go of wanting and moving into that allowing. And over time, with all of these things, I was able to have more compassion for myself. And compassion is the seed of forgiveness, self-compassion, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Oh, everything you just talked about, I mean, they try to instill, just being present in the present moment, just regularly. And it's like almost like the secret key to things. But if you can manage to do that during a caregiving journey, wow.
it is quite transformative, because on the journey, often for many people on earth, there isn't another option, right? So this is what's happening. So for me, and it wasn't perfect all the time, my gosh, like, I've still said things I wish I hadn't said and did things I wish I hadn't done, and things happened and decisions were made that it's never perfect.
Yeah.
However, um, I moved into a space of feeling like I was doing the best that I could at that moment, whatever that looked like. And that made it manageable in many ways, because I let myself be in the present moment with it and allow. And when I started to do that, I could really see how, when I didn't do that, that I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
So one became better than the other. it's really hard to be patient and forgiving when you've had 1 to 2 hours sleep for 15, 20 nights in a row. Like,
Yeah.
that they use no
Oh,
sleep as a method of torture. So I don't want to sugarcoat anything here, the realities of what we are going through. And I mean, God, just my legs being tired, right? Just
yeah.
my legs being so tired from standing 20 hours a day, or what was that, whatever was going on. My voice being exhausted from working, talking to the caregivers, navigate, you're just on so much. So definitely don't want to sugarcoat anything. However, these practices that I allowed and introduced into my world definitely made things easier. And I was able to accept myself more. And from there, I could forgive myself more easily if something happened that didn't feel great.
Yeah. The guilt, the guilt that comes with it.
The guilt. And there's still things that I think about that feel really bad. And I do feel it transmuting, but it's taking time. And really, the way through it is to actually allow yourself to feel it.
Yes.
Oh, I feel guilty. I don't want to feel like that. So we distract ourselves in some way.
Yeah.
But, I let myself be angry at myself. I let myself be angry at the system. And, most people are, oh, it's okay. Don't feel, you did the best you could. No, I didn't. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I did. And can someone just validate me? The counselors couldn't even do that. So, and that's actual effective mental health support, right? When someone can validate
Validation. Yeah.
and be with you where you are. So, um, yeah, that letting myself have my actual feelings was a way through the guilt. And it's not easy and it doesn't happen
Yeah.
overnight. Like, again, there's no sugarcoating here. But I also knew that my mom would not want me to live with that.
Yeah.
So I look at it as another way of um honoring her, right? She gave me this life. She wants it to be the best that it can. So, in service of her, I need to do this work whenever I can. Maybe it's 5 years after she's gone, like whatever.
Yeah.
But I need to do that. And also, that is part of this transformational gift that I feel like I was given, even though it never felt like a gift. And then, you know, sometimes it did. Sometimes I'd look at my mom and be like, my mom's the Buddha or
Yeah.
whatever, like you're a
Yeah.
little angel. Tee, and I'm like, ah! But it's, it's coming up on 2 years since mom passed. And my world does look very different. And I'm very different. Um, I definitely don't experience stress the way that I used to. It was so hard that things kind of just, I'm like, no biggie. Like,
Yeah.
which I'm grateful for because my gosh, like stress is caregiving or not, just such a big part of so many people's lives. And I mean, of course, I still get stressed out, but the degree and even pre-caregiving, I was great at getting stressed out. But after, pumping myself through that pressure cooker or us being on that journey, pressure cooker journey together, I'm released in some way now that is um lighter and things don't seem so serious. Things seemed very, very serious when I was a caregiver because I was caregiving and I did not want this person to suffer or die, right? So that causes the caregiver a lot of stress. Not wanting that to happen is really what is stressing the caregiver out in a big picture, right? And the all the things fall into that. The health system not working, and we're not getting, that all causes stress. And because those systems don't function well, it's just an onslaught, right? And it makes us more scared because we're not getting proper support. So we feel like the potential for suffering or death is even more. I was most afraid of was my mom dying.
Yeah.
So I've done that now. I've done the going through that dark, long tunnel of caregiving, and I've come out on the other side, and I was, faced with my mother's death, who died while I was present. And that was the one thing that I was most terrified of my entire life. And I don't feel scared of anything now. I didn't think I could ever live without her, and I am. Um, and I feel her in me, right? I'm 50% her. She's here. I feel okay. And I also give my permission. Right now, I feel okay. And I also give myself permission to not feel okay. And it's okay to not feel okay. And it's okay to feel okay. And it's okay to feel not okay and okay at the same time. Like it can all be true. I don't know. There's so much. What would I tell myself? One thing that I would tell myself looking back at the beginning of the journey would be okay, I need to say that again. I think the one thing I would say to myself, if I could go back in time and say this to myself or have someone say it to me, would be to not be judgmental. I was very judgmental of my mom, and that caused a lot of grief for both of us. Um, I couldn't accept her or where she was at, and because of that, I couldn't meet her where she was at. And if you can meet someone where they're at, there's so much opportunity for joy and connection and memory making um and life. My mom's given me a lot of gifts. Mom, you've given me a lot of gifts. One of the best gifts, and this might be the best gift actually. The best gift that my mom gave me was that she let me be myself my whole life. It doesn't mean that she didn't teach me manners, but she didn't force me to be somebody that I was not. And no one wants to feel like they're not good enough. No one wants to feel like they're not worthy. And because she let me be myself, I felt like that probably more than I would have if I was trying to figure out who I was, because she didn't let me be myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't give her that back. Right? I didn't let her be herself. Eventually I did. But so that's the nugget. I mean, one thing that I would definitely say to caregivers is self-care is inside of oneself. It starts inside of oneself. And that is allowing and practicing that, because that does lead to, I'm going to start over, and practicing, and what was I saying? And practicing that, because that leads to self-compassion and self-forgiveness, which we're all going to need on this journey. And allowing really is a way through that. That really, really overwhelming, challenging time. The way to find balance in caregiving is by having the tools to manage the stress and the emotions, and the stress that is caused by the emotions, right? So that's really how to find the balance. So allowing conscious breathing, non-judgment, meeting someone where they are, therapeutic fibbing, all these little things, but really the breath, the allowing, the letting go of story, these are things that really set a caregiver up for success.
So you allow caregivers to show up as they are in that moment, and you work with them and customize a plan to help them manage and get into that space that they need to be so they can provide the best care for their loved one.
That's exactly right. Because everyone's journey is so different, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I work with dementia, but also other chronic illness or situations. And it is really meeting people where they are, actively listening and consciously moving through that to find solutions that are actually effective. Or finding ways through for right now until something becomes available. How can we make this easier? And navigating the system, how to get supports, how to get respite. You know, that's something that most people that come to me, how do I get respite? So that's really something that is often number one. And just, you know, meeting people where they are and helping them kind of catch up to the realities of what's going on and understanding that new reality, that new space.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So where can they find you? They can go to your website. Do you have an email?
I have a website and I have email. My website's probably the easiest thing to remember. It's katrinaprescott.com.
Oh, perfect. So they can go to your website and they can contact you there.
Yes, would love to hear from anyone that needs support and in this intense and possibly transformational journey.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity in the journey to live a life with purpose and meaning for the caree and for the person or people providing care. And finding that is such a game changer on this journey.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Katrina, for sharing this incredible journey that you went through, your transformational journey, all your learnings, the struggles, the barriers that you faced, and then to still be strong enough afterwards to be there for other caregivers is incredible, and you're amazing. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you for saying that. And one final thing, I mean, the reason that I do this and the reason that I speak out is because I know that Mom and I both would not want anyone to go through what we did. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Each caregiver is reinventing the wheel on their own, and it just doesn't have to be that way. So that's one reason I speak up and also offer support.